we don't have savings too. We don't.
Yes.
The,
Yeah.
the, the closest we have is to buy a land. Well, you can't buy a fraction of a square meter. They call us consuming base, not because we like to consume. So you see somebody who has 10 handbags. I'll
Yeah.
prefer to buy those handbags than to save the money.
This is the Mooncast.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's good to connect with my brother, man. So,
Yeah.
um, I had a interesting sort of synopsis of the situation with Bitcoin, and
Okay.
I want to know what you think about it in particular when it comes to where people are going to allocate their capital moving forward as we're reaching towards hyperinflation, as they can't kick the can down the road much further. So I was thinking that companies, like you see what's happening with MicroStrategy, would start to accelerate the process. Not just MicroStrategy anymore. There's a company in Japan that's doing it. There's a couple other
Meta
companies that are
Planet.
doing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you think that this is going to accelerate very, very soon and sooner than we think? And how much percentage of allocation within a company's treasury do you think is suitable for this particular point in time? Do you think they should put everything into Bitcoin now? Do you think they should ease in 5%, 10%? What would you do? How would you, if you were an economic advisor or a treasury advisor for a institution, what would you advise them? You know, I know you're super bullish, but
All right. I think it depends on how the company is designed. Now, if you can see, it didn't take Sailor much time to adopt the Bitcoin standard. That's because he was the first to understand it in his company, and he's the CEO, and he has
yeah,
majority of the shares. So all he had to do was consult the rest of them, told them this is the standard I want to adopt, and then he was ready to buy their shares above the market price
yeah,
in case they feel maybe he's trying to take some risks and it's too risky, or those kind of fear. So he understood it to the max. If I was in seller's position, I'll do the same thing. That's because I've done the proof of work. So it depends on how the company is structured. If it's structured in a way where you need a lot of shareholders to make decisions, you need a lot of board members and a lot of proceedings, paperwork and all those kind of stuff. Now it will take a very long time, right? Changing the structure of a company takes a very long time. And then, but if it's just maybe a handful of persons or just one person making a decision, or then you can speed up the process of the decision making, then it wouldn't take time, right? As you can see, MicroStrategy is over 100% because they are using debt. They are not even
yeah,
just using their cash reserve, they are over 100%. So that's the same thing I would do. Even as a personally, I told you I started with debt because the cash was not enough. When you understand Bitcoin, you can't just resort to just cash alone, because yeah, cash is the maximum you have in reserve. But then you know that someone else has cash in the bank that is devaluing or something. So you want to take advantage of that reserve, the person's reserve, and that's your debt, right? So that's now your own liability. So I think over time, when companies begin to understand the how necessary it is to board on the Bitcoin standard, because if you're not on a Bitcoin standard, you are just bleeding. But the thing is that you don't know how fast you are bleeding, right? Yes.
yeah,
So you can be bleeding faster than someone else or slower than someone else, but you're still bleeding, holding fiat, whether you know it or not.
yeah,
So if I were to be in that position, one, I will definitely, all my cash reserve will go to, all my earnings will go to Bitcoin, right? As long as we don't have any regulatory, like for example, I've been talking to some persons in Nigeria now. Some persons want to do that, but because of regulation, right? It's not easy for everyone to just onboard, especially businesses. So sometimes they need to, because of tax sake and all those things, and how you structure your finance. So if they know that you are saving in Bitcoin, they might clamp down your company and put some kind of uh, fine or fees on you or whatever. But what I'm saying is generally, if it's something I can do, if it's something that is not within a jurisdiction where there is regulatory pressure and all those things, 100%, over 100% is the best allocation. And over time, companies will do that. Governments will do that. El Salvador is already doing it as a government, right? A
Yeah.
Bitcoin a day. Yeah. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
So So, how do you think, countries like Nigeria get over that regulatory hurdle of, hey, if you better watch yourself, we want you to use the naira so you can continue to get devalued at a 50 to 100% rate per year instead of using Bitcoin standard, which, saves your purchasing power. How do you think there's the workarounds are around that in particular?
There are various ways to do that. Personally, and I don't know if I want to say everything on air because you know
Let,
the kind of
let's,
the kind of country we live in where you say something, you try to help someone with your information and then it becomes you know so. But those who are savvy understand how to go about this. I don't have a problem adopting a Bitcoin standard, right?
yeah.
I know there are a lot of persons who don't have a problem doing that. But to me, on the regulatory side, I just feel they have little information because, yeah, they have little or no information about what this is. And I think the aspect I want to talk about is they need more genuine information. If really, because, well, I don't think they care about those who want to hedge themselves against inflation. So they
Yeah.
just want to, they call it capital control.
Yeah.
And when we talk about, I think this is one of my thesis when it comes to, I have this what is what is in it for me model, right? When I
Yeah.
talk about Bitcoin, so the third of them is absolute financial freedom.
Yeah.
Some people define financial freedom as a maybe a net worth or maybe number of money you have in your bank accounts that can help you for retirement sake and all those kind of things. Some people quote financial freedom that way, but that's not the way I see it. I think if you have something like uh, if you live within a country that has high capital control, right? Or where there's no property rights, you can't tell me you're financially free because
Yeah.
that money is not yours. The money in the
Yeah.
bank account is not yours, right? So what I'm trying to say here is if they really want the people to be free, right? They won't put all those capital control and all those things. But then for someone who really wants to go from the fiat standard to the Bitcoin standard and then hedge yourself against inflation. There are many ways to go about it. You can, buy Bitcoin and self custody, and then you just need to have a close contact with those who are already doing it. And I think that's much I should say now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not, you know how the country is. So
I know, I know, I know.
yeah,
Okay, so do you think a potential, because this is how I look at the big picture, right? So when I look at it in El Salvador and I see what they're doing and how
yeah.
their experiment is working, I start to think, okay, what is the next play? And in my head, it's like, is the next play for these countries once they adopt more of a Bitcoin standard is to challenge the US bond market with Bitcoin backed bonds? Is that another, is that something that you could see as a potential sort of competitor in the sense of instead of them issuing out bonds and then people buying their local currency like a naira, you're
Yeah.
now able to generate liquidity because you're having a standard that's universal, decentralized, and uniformly agreed upon as a medium of exchange, as opposed to something that is inflating away in terms of its value. So you think if it's a way to generate Do you think it would be a way for governments to generate more capital or more liquidity so they can use that liquidity to build up their countries?
Yeah, that's in fact that's the ultimate strategy. And I think any country that is not thinking of this now is still left behind. They are still in the industrial age, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we are already in the information age. So this is a very good information. I think there's someone who talks about this very well. I think he's also building it. It's called the People's Reserve. So it's teaching nation states how to build a Bitcoin backed bond, right? So where you can issue, you can issue currency and then back it up with Bitcoin and all those sort of stuff. So he I think his name is Constantinos. So he breaks this thing down very well, very detailed. I don't know if I'll have all the information to break it down, but I know that on the long run, since Bitcoin is not something you can just print, and then you can print the local currency, backing it up with Bitcoin, right? I think you will have more capitals or more capital inflow into your country. So I just feel it's an advantage to any country that's thinking about it now. And I feel maybe Trump, from the fact that he's thinking of a new treasury reserve, person in treasury reserve, and I know words in the air is saying he's looking at Larry Fink, or I don't know whether it's JP Morgan CEO. I don't know which of them, but the fact he's thinking about changing his treasury, right? He's changing his treasury secretary. It's something also he's working on, right? So any country that is not thinking about it is being left behind. So we can see how nations, companies are already doing that, like a micro strategy, and you can see how it's helping his stock. I can't believe we are still in the bear. We are not even in the bull market yet,
I know,
and
I know.
his stock is already taking out the S&P 500 stocks, right? So
Yeah.
I feel any country that is doing that or that is working on that is will be at an advantage over time. So I think that's
Did you know that smart contract developers make around $120,000 per year? We are building the biggest Web3 talent pool in Africa, linking you to companies looking to outsource cheaper labor. Find out and join us at helico.xyz. And as always, see you, Space Cowboy.
When you look at, I don't know if you saw what's happening, in the U.S. with Trump and him getting shot and everything, and he's very pro Bitcoin and everything. So, well, now he's pro Bitcoin, but 2 years ago he wasn't pro Bitcoin. If you've been following him, but anyways, some say it's maybe a strategy to win the election, and then he may revert some of the stuff that he's claiming that he will be doing. But anyways, it looks like we're gonna have the first U.S. pro Bitcoin president. It's looking that way, and
of course.
apparently he went and did a meeting with a Bitcoiner to talk about how they could back the U.S. Dollar with Bitcoin,
Reserve.
but just a small percentage, just 1% for now,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
increase the allocation maybe over time, because obviously it's a nation state, and so
Yeah.
it's the biggest nation state, so
Yeah.
it's a large risk to take to just
And
fully
they
go
have
Bitcoin.
they already have the advantage of being the world reserve currency, right? So, well, I think it will be easy for them on the one hand, and on the other hand, even if they don't do it, they won't lose much because they are still, in fact, their major export is dollar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's their major export. So even if they don't do it, yes, maybe on the long run it might backfire, because then when everyone is no more seeing the US dollar as the pristine uh, treasury asset, right?
It's
Then they
already
begin to
happened.
send it. Yeah, yeah, of course. They start sending it back home, and then it's hyperinflation for US dollar. So I think he's thinking faster. But even if they don't do it yet, I think they still have the might to protect the US dollar and then still have it as a nation, as the global reserve currency for a longer time. But for the fact that he's thinking on that lane is an advantage to, well, I know not everybody will agree, because most persons don't even understand this Bitcoin, right? So they just feel maybe it's a kind of, I think, was it an interview that, uh, what was her name? Uh, forgotten her name. She's a Senate. This
Janet Yellen.
no, not Janet, not Janet. Janet is secretary. Um, anti-crypto army lady,
Elizabeth
Elizabeth
Warren.
Warren.
Yeah,
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 yeah, Elizabeth Warren. She was saying
yeah.
something like, "When I buy Bitcoin, am I buying air? Am I buying stock?" She doesn't even understand it, right? She doesn't
None of them
understand it
do.
actually. So,
Even the economic advisor of Joe Biden, when he was trying to
thank you.
explain
He doesn't even
money,
understand treasury. He doesn't
yes,
even understand how it works. Not to talk of Bitcoin. Yeah, and not just him. Uh, I don't know if you know this. The Fed guy. His
Jerome
name
Powell.
is Fed guy. No, no, not Jerome Powell. His name is they call him the Fed guy.
Oh no, I don't
He's
know him.
Joseph. He wrote a book, Central Bank 101. Joseph Wang. That's his name.
Yeah.
I was reading his book. He's very detailed in how the US dollar works and all that, but he doesn't understand Bitcoin. He said it plainly that he doesn't really talk about Bitcoin because he doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And this Keynesian, this Keynesian lane
Keynesian guys, yeah.
yeah, he's a Keynesian, full Keynesian. He doesn't understand anything Austrian economics and all those stuff, right?
I call them the Keynesian bros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't understand how it works. He doesn't understand that monetary inflation is actually the bedrock of price inflation over time, right? He
Yes.
doesn't really understand that. He just feels monetary inflation helps spending, it helps consumption, spending, and it helps taxation and all those things. That's the way he sees it. So he feels it doesn't rob anybody. He feels inflation doesn't rob anybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So he actually said it on his show. He said he doesn't really understand Bitcoin much, so that's why he doesn't talk about it. And I like the fact that he said it openly.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
yeah, I like the fact he said it openly. Unlike some people who will tell you Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that, even when what they're trying to say is they don't understand it.
Yes.
So over time, I just feel if the US is stationed to do this, and if 1% is a lot, 1% is a lot for them. But if they can start from there, then it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would be a really good head start. And if they do it, it will, everyone tries to reflect kind of still what the US does. So if they see the US doing it, it's like, oh no, I got to get into Bitcoin. And it's going to
Of course.
accelerate the game theory, that El
Yeah,
Salvador
of
started.
course. Of course.
So we'll see what happens. Either way, we're positioned. So, for
Yeah.
me, it's like I shrug my shoulders, like, hey, I'm positioned. So, I was telling people to get in the teens, and they didn't listen. So,
They'll get it at the price they deserve.
exactly, man. And also, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more because you said something about about getting debt and then using the debt to buy the Bitcoin and then paying the debt back later when it's been more inflated and the Bitcoin has already had a price appreciation, so you have less to pay. That strategy, you think because it can't really work in a lot of African countries due to the fact of it's harder to get access to liquidity and also the liquidity is more expensive, right? So
Yeah.
if that's not an option, it has to be cash reserves, no, doesn't it? Because you're already down 30%. You have to surpass the 30% or 20% interest rate, right? To
Yeah.
pass that in terms of margins, right? To
Yeah.
be to break even, and then once you pass that, then you're in profit. So
Yeah. This is a very good question because this is actually I said I have a model, the was in it for me model. Because when I
right,
talk to people about Bitcoin, and I notice this is the mistake most of us make. Please remind me of this your question because I'm working towards it, but I want to build something before getting there. This is a mistake most people make because they feel they need to understand. Uh, for example, let me use an example. The headphone you're using, you don't understand the technology behind the headphone you're using. The
yes,
most important thing for you is it gives you sound, right?
yes,
And you love the sound. That's it. So the reason you're using the headphone is what's in it for you. So that's the reason you're using it, not because you understand the technology behind what makes the headphone function. So and now this I notice most people this is a mistake they make when it comes to Bitcoin because they feel that you need to be an economist or you need to be in fact that's what fiat people think, right? Because they for fiat you need to be a central banker before you even understand how fiat works. right? You don't need to understand how fiat works, except you're studying economics in depth.
Yeah.
But the rest of the persons using fiat, how would they know when inflation is against them? Because inflation does not favor the common man, right? So what I'm trying to say is, most of us make the mistake of thinking everyone has to be uh, a technologist, or maybe you have to study computer science to understand Bitcoin. So you tell somebody about Bitcoin, he's telling you about difficulty adjustment and Turing complete, and so many detailed stuff. And this is why most people don't understand Bitcoin. But my dad can hold Bitcoin. He doesn't need to be an economist. He doesn't need to be a computer scientist, right? So they
Yeah.
feel maybe everyone who owns Bitcoin is a nerd. No. The thing you should understand is what Bitcoin is for you. What's in it for you? Just the way your headphone gives you sound, right? So
Yeah.
you don't need to understand mining in details. Yeah, later on you can learn more if you like, but you don't really need to understand mining. Just the way before you buy a house, you don't need to understand the reinforced concrete. You don't need to understand mixed ratio. I'm a quantity
Yes.
surveyor, so I'm talking in that terms. You don't need to
Yes.
understand this thing. You just need to understand that the house gives you shelter, right?
Yes.
And you like
Yeah.
the aesthetics and the design. That is what is pleasing to you. So coming back to your question, the most important. This is one of the most important things that people don't understand. Bitcoin uh is like a good credit system. But let me go back to how do people understand how to use debt to buy Bitcoin, right? So you said in African countries where you have high inflation, and where there's high inflation, there's no credit system, right? There's no normal, we don't have credit cards and all those things. There's no good credit system.
Yeah.
So it simply means for you to even get credit, the interest rate has to be very high.
Yeah.
So you really need to understand interest very well, how interest rate works before you need to go into debt. And a lot of people, this is what kill their businesses in Nigeria. I'm telling you, a lot of persons. So
How?
sometimes I know a man who used his oil business, like if a fuel station, as collateral, but because he didn't understand the inflationary aspect of the currency, so he got liquidated, and then the bank took away his property, like his filling station. Not just two, I think three of them took away his filling station, and he went bankrupt, right? Because he didn't
Wow.
understand credit system. He didn't understand how you need to make above your interest. So he
Exactly.
just felt he had property, and then tomorrow he can pay back the money, not knowing that the inflation rate is higher than what he's earning.
Than what he's
Is
earning. Exactly. And
the
this is what I
you
was
get
trying to
so
get to is you need
yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to wait. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go.
So what you need to understand is, and I've done this lesson with a lot of persons in my WhatsApp group. So I teach them how to use debt. So what you need to understand debt is, there are two types of debt. There is secured and unsecured. So secured is the
Yes.
one you use collateral, right? Like your house or whatever, or what you have. So sometimes I jokingly say I'm almost tempted to use my friends as collateral, just because I want to, just because I want to buy Bitcoin. But let me continue. So the unsecured type of debt is when you don't have collateral. So it simply means you need to understand the interest rate, because then the interest rates will be very high. I'll kid you not, in Nigeria, unsecured debt, unsecured loan goes to as high as 400%.
You're joking.
Yeah, I'm not joking. In
So
fact,
so
your normal overdraft goes above even the one I use. And when I use it, I try to pay it that day,
yeah.
because how the overdrafts work is, if you don't pay it that day, you'll be charged. The one I use is 150%. So
Wow.
yeah, 150%. But I try to pay it that day, so I don't pay any interest. So
Yeah.
like maybe for an emergency, that's when I use it. But I have to pay it that day. When it stays over a day, because they charge interest daily. So when it stays over a day, you pay that interest. So this is what most people don't know in our African setting, because we don't understand money, we don't understand interest, we don't understand how these things work. So this is where we call them shark loan
Yeah.
sharks. This is where they
Yeah.
make a lot of money. This is where they make a lot of money. In fact, it goes to an extent that most people cannot even pay back their principal and their interest. And they go
Yeah.
as far as putting their post online saying they did a lot of things, just to try to get them back to pay their money.
Yeah.
Right? So people need to understand secured and unsecured debts.
Yeah.
But what I tell people is, in this country, these settings where we are, you don't, if you understand secure debt, you have an advantage, because actually secure debt is the interest rate is lower than unsecured debt. But if you don't understand unsecured loan or debt, don't go there,
Yeah.
because you cannot redeem. In fact, most people who do that, they do it at the sake of maybe emergency, but you can't use that for business and make profits.
Yeah.
You are
Um,
financing higher. So at the end of the day, you are at a net loss, because you are financing the loan higher than what you're paying, or what you're earning. Sorry, what you're earning.
yeah.
So the rate at which you're financing the loan is higher than your income. So you can't
Yes.
break even. So what I tell people in this situation is, trust is the collateral. That's what I use, because like I
Yeah.
told you, I know there are many persons who save cash,
Yeah.
not because they want to save it, but they don't have an option, right?
Yeah.
And they don't understand inflation. So what I do is, I call you up, I say, Moon boy, please. And this is something I started for a very long time. For example, I might call you up and say, please, I need an amount, so and so amount, and I'll pay back to you maybe Wednesday, 12 p.m.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, 12 p.m., I pay you back. Now, I don't need that money. I took it for me because I wanted to create trust.
Yeah.
I actually didn't use it for anything. I just did it to create trust with you. I'm just telling you how I do
Yeah.
my.
Yeah. Smart. Smart. Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. So when I do that 3 times, when I actually need it, nothing will stop you from giving it to me.
Yeah. And
So that's
it's
my
smart.
collateral.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
own collateral. That's trust. So this is the way I do it. So I take from you and then I buy Bitcoin. Now, even if I take it and I say I'll give it to you in 2 weeks, 2 months, you'll be okay, because
Yeah.
you always get it. But
Yes.
I'm using it to buy Bitcoin. Now that's zero interest. So
Yes.
I've gotten loan with zero interest. So this is how I structure mine.
Yeah, your debt based collateral. Yeah, it makes sense. It's a very really genius way to do it and to go about it. And for anyone listening, this is ideas they can use to get liquidity when they need it, even in a hyperinflationary environment. And by the way, what is it like living in this sort of hyperinflationary environment that you're currently in Nigeria? How is it? What is the people's psyche like? Is it just I need to spend the money and get the money fast? Like how are they look? There's no long
Unconscious,
term
yeah,
thinking.
unconsciously you just need to spend the money, because the reason you are spending the money is not because you understand inflation,
Yeah,
or it's not because you understand that the money is the cost, right? That's the debasement of the money is the cost. You want to spend it fast because when you earn that amount and then you want to go to the market to buy something else, the price is higher than the price it normally is. So to you, it's better off buying now.
yeah,
This is where the consumption mindset comes in. Now, this is something that most people don't. They feel Africans are consumption based. No, we are
yeah,
actually saving. We are more savers than
yeah,
consumers. But the reason we have to consume is because our money doesn't have value.
yeah,
So why am I don't have any incentive to save. Why should I save something when I know that when I go to the market to buy something, like buy what I know I bought last week, the price is higher. There's no
yeah,
incentive, so I can't save. But because our system is not debt based, it's not credit based, automatically we are savers, right? Because what is credit? The ability to spend into the future,
yes,
take money from a system and spend into the future. But we don't have a credit system. So automatically, how you get finance for whatever you do is by saving. You earn, you save, and then you spend.
yeah,
But now it has made it to the point that nobody has savings again,
yeah,
right? This is where now you've touched my first. What is the need for me? I don't know. Yeah, the way you are bringing out. So you've touched my first reason why people should use Bitcoin as a savings tool, because we don't have savings tool. We don't.
yes,
The
yeah,
the the closest we have is to buy a land. Well, you can't buy a fraction of a square meter, right?
Yeah,
You can't buy 2 cm of a land. You can't buy fractions of a land. And for
exactly.
the fact that you have to save for years before you are able to purchase that land, that currency you are saving keeps getting devalued.
Yeah.
So you are not incentivized to save. So it simply means it gets to the point where people don't even have property. All they have is consume, consume, and consume, and consume. That's how most people live. In fact, most people work just to make expenses,
Yeah.
right? Because the inflation rate is very high. And whenever I talk to people about Bitcoin, this is the first place I strike. I tell them money in the bank, savings is not money in the bank.
Yeah.
That's how I tell them. First thing, savings doesn't mean money in the bank. Savings simply means an evidence of what I have produced, goods
Yes.
and services I've produced, but I have not consumed. But that portion I have not consumed, I have to save it in something.
Yes.
Now, if I save it in currency, expect devaluation. So there's no reason for me to save in currency. So what else can I do? I can't buy a land because I can't use my monthly income to buy land, right?
Yeah.
Because land is bulk, is monetary, it's a high intensive kind of a purchase. So you need to have a lot of money to buy a land at a time. So we don't have gold. We don't see gold around. We don't have stock markets. Stock market is only the thing you can buy fractionally. But we don't have a
Yeah.
vibrant stock market. I can bet you 1 out of 10 person. In fact, I don't know who buys stock. I don't know any person who buys stock, right? So the only thing we have is this Bitcoin. So this is the one aspect where I talk to people about savings, and it hits them, right? Like the moment I tell them Bitcoin is savings, don't just break your head about a lot of things. Understand it as savings. And then I explain how volatility is just a price stuff where they see. And because most people, when they think Bitcoin is volatile, I also tell them that even your currency in your bank account is not stable, because
Yes.
if you check the value of in exchange to goods and services you exchange it for, or uh, check it in relative to maybe the US dollar, you will see that it's not stable, right?
Yeah.
So this is just the aspect I try to bring to people so that they understand the reason. The reason is very important to save in
Yeah.
Bitcoin. So the credit system doesn't work here. So you have to save, and this is what brings about consumption. They call us consuming base, not because we like to consume. So you see somebody who has 10 handbags, I'll
Yeah.
prefer to buy those handbags than to save the money. Or
Yes.
you see me
Yeah.
buying, there's someone I know who bought. It's funny, he bought, uh will I call it, trailer load or truckload of food stuff, not because he can consume those food stuff at the same time, but because he knows that it's better off buying that food stuff, right? Because if he goes to the market the next day, the price is higher because of
Yeah.
inflation.
Yeah.
But most people, they just think the inflation is the increase in price of goods. They don't understand that is the currency that is the actual cause of the inflation. So they
Yeah.
can't really connect these things. So this is where I help to, share the light to make people understand it very well.
The entire global north has an aging population, while 70% of Africa is aged 30 and younger. Less humans plus high inflation means that businesses make less money, but it doesn't have to be you. Helicode is your one-stop shop for cheap, affordable, and most importantly, quality Web3 labor. Find out more at helicode.xyz, and as always, see you, Space Cowboy.
When you talk about excess amounts of, well, really what it is time and energy that you're storing in the bank, right? And those excess amounts of it that you store, if I can correlate that or try to draw a parallel to, let's say, for instance, if there was, constant electricity, which there should be in a lot of African countries, but I know why the situation is the way it is. But we won't get into that for this particular podcast. But the point is, in a hypothetical scenario with the abundance of sunlight and being able to have excess electricity, could that be also another means of production and value extraction by leveraging that excess amount of electricity for Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, Yeah, but that's if you have if I think this will work very well in the north, because
Hmm.
the northern part of Nigeria is actually the sub-Sahara, so it's
Yes.
actually very hot, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've talked to someone about this, but just because I'm not in the mining game and yet, so
Hmm.
I really don't know how.
Yet.
But I know, yeah, I really don't know how the whole stuff works. But that's because I'm not in the mining game. But I think there's someone who was talking about it, but I think he's based in the north, but he could not disclose because of regulatory. He didn't want to disclose his location.
Yeah.
So that just because of the security sake and all those stuff. But I
Oh wow.
think it will help. It will help. Where we have this high rate of sun and all those stuff, and then you can channel it to maybe use an inverter or something, and then use it in mining or so. But I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know how it works, so I can't really comment much on that.
How much time do you think people have left to really, like, when do you think Bitcoin starts hyper Bitcoinizing? Like, what is your estimates? Because when I look at the situation and I see, because I'm studying the US market a lot, and I'm looking at the
Yeah.
numbers and it's not much time left, especially when you look at all the countries that own treasury bonds, and China owning the most treasury bonds and are dumping them right now for gold. And Japan has to dump their bonds right now for back. They're actually dumping their US treasury bonds to buy back the yen because the yen is crashing right now. So I'm looking at the landscape of what is going on currently globally, and also the middle class. A lot of people who are watching this don't know, but the Western middle class is depreciating by the day. So
Yeah.
there's becoming a huge wealth gap. In the States, you need to be making $80,000 a year, I believe, to be in the middle. No, $72,000 a year to be middle class in the U.S. now, which no, not many people are making that. And you know
That's
what's
one
funny, actually,
Bitcoin.
the reason I said 80,000 is because actually, when Nigerians go over there, the average salary for a Nigerian there is 80% or $80,000, which is crazy. So they're
Crazy.
actually above. But I mean, it's not crazy because I know how dense the talent pool is in Nigeria. It's just because of the I know what the situation is. Like I said, I won't get too much into that for now because I don't want to get in any kind of trouble. But so I'm studying everything and seeing that there's not much time left, especially in the U.S. When you look at the aspect of, as the middle class depreciates and as the wealth gap increases, you're going to get to a point in time where the poor will rebel, because that's what always happens. And so that amount of poor people is going to increase. The difference with the US than other nation states is the fact that everyone owns a gun. So so I'm looking at this
That's
aspect.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that this is like a ticking time bomb. And I think people don't understand there's not much time. And this is why you're starting to see a lot of different movements, like the Pan African movement, starting to rise up. People are starting to repatriate back to the continent. People are repatriating back, or moving to Thailand. People are moving to, Westerners are in out in Southeast Asia. They're out in South America. They're on the continent too as well. So my question to you, based off everything I've just said, is how long do you think until the hyper Bitcoinization occurs, and when do you think we reach that $1 million mark? And will it matter in the context when we're already kind of going to be on a Bitcoin standard, and 1 million isn't going to be worth what it's worth currently today?
Uh, uh, in the context of time, I can't really place a time, right? Um, Bitcoin has this way of breaking every model.
Yeah.
So if you try to place time on it, it will do above. Or if you try to just model it, it will have a way to distort your model. So I can't really place a time, but I know it's coming fast. In fact, the rate of adoption for the last 15 years, right, as it's something else. In fact, and most times I try to project it just like the internet. So the internet is roughly around 42 years now,
Yeah.
roughly 42 years, and this is 2024, and see what the internet is doing. In fact, you can't do anything now without relying on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And if you project that to Bitcoin, so it will be around the project for 2 years uh, from Bitcoin adoption, which is 2009. I think it will be around 2050 or so.
2050.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
2050. So it's just like we are. It's just like when you project that. So we are. Uh, 2024 now is like 1998 internet in
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but Bitcoin has done a lot. So what I'm trying to say here is hyper Bitcoinization can come faster than we are thinking. But then when it comes, will it really matter? Will it? Because it will only matter if you're holding, because then you can see the effect. But if you're not holding, you might not really understand what's even happening.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just, and that's why I try to, talk to on a daily basis. I make a post on Bitcoin on my Twitter, and then I screenshot it and put it on my WhatsApp. So I make it very short so that you can read it. But I do it. I've been doing that for almost 2 years now on a daily
Yeah.
basis. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you're not on board, uh, this is the time to actually understand what this technology is about to do. So it's just to get on board, even if you need to learn what you need to learn. But I tell people you don't need to learn everything. The most important thing is what it's used for you, right?
Yeah.
So it's to protect your purchasing power, and then Bitcoin has a way of you know absorbing the monetary value of every other thing as time goes on, because most things will not see them as store of value again. The reason
Yeah.
most someone will have so the reason someone wants to have 10 houses is not because he wants to live in those 10 houses, or because he enjoys the hustle of taking rent and doing maintenance on building and all those things. That's just because that is his savings too. He used it
Yes.
as a savings account. That's what he used real estate as, savings
Yeah.
account, not because he wants to have more homes. So as time goes on, Bitcoin will begin to absorb all this. Right now, you see where I'm going. You talked about hyper Bitcoinization. So most people cannot see this. They might
Yeah.
think hyper Bitcoinization is just numbers go up, or maybe when everyone else is using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not just it. Because as I'm talking to you, someone might be thinking, why do I need 10 homes? That's
Yeah.
hyper Bitcoinization coming. The person might be thinking, why do I need 10 homes? Why do I need to hold the S&P 500 when relative to Bitcoin is trending to zero?
Yeah.
Right? If you go to the chart and look at S&P 500, price in Bitcoin is going to zero. Gold
Exactly.
price in Bitcoin is going to zero. Real estate price in Bitcoin is going. This is hyper Bitcoinization. This is a form of hyper Bitcoinization, but most people are not seeing it this way. So what Bitcoin will do is that over time it will begin to eat the monetary premium of every other thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this is how adoption will keep going on and on. And before you know, you just wake up. There was a time when I think in the late or in the early, is it 1800 or so, when automobile came, or early 1900, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
1900, when automobile came. What did England call it? They call it a death machine. I think there's a story of where someone will need to be in front to wave flag and say there's something coming. It's a death machine. So everyone needs to play. You get. And it got to a point where when you go to the road, you will see more horses than cars,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think they said that there was a picture that was taken, I think how many years later. And when they took a picture of that same road, there were more cars than horses. Now, when you go to the road, you don't see horses again. My children will not even think that we use horses as a means of transportation one time, because they
Mm-hmm.
will grow up not seeing horses at all. So what I'm saying is it will come in a way that most that are not holding will not even notice what's happening.
Yeah.
They won't know. The reason we're talking about this is because I'm talking about S&P 500 trading towards zero,
Yeah.
gold trading towards zero, real estate. It's because we know what Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
But when you talk to people about this, they don't even understand.
Yeah.
But a lot of persons who are doing the work, or who have maybe some financial advisors telling them, okay, this is where we are going, before you know, things will just turn around. And but I can't put a time on that. That's just
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. I can't really put a time on that.
How many, just off your estimates of what you just think, hypothetically, sats do you think you would need, let's say by 2050, to be pretty in a really good situation? Is it a million sats? Is it 10 million sats? 100 million sats? Is it a billion sats? Like how many sats? How many sats you think you would need to be in a comfortable scenario for yourself if you just had to say by 2050?
Wow. I don't know if I can. There's a chart that shows. I think the best way to answer this would be to look at um, when uh, Bitcoin mining, when issuance would issue less than one Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The epoch that will issue less than one Bitcoin
Yeah.
as issuance fee or mining
Yes.
fee. Let me use that word. So I
Yes.
think that will be around.
It should
If I
be in a
can,
few more halvings. It should be in
yeah,
about
it should be. I know it's a long time, but I want to get the.
the exact. Yeah.
I think it's 20. Okay, you said 2050, right?
Yeah.
Your estimate. Okay, that will be in 2032.
2032. And this is more of
Yeah.
my time frame. So cuz you said 2050. My time
Yes.
frame, cuz this is what I wanted to get into, cuz my time frame is actually shorter than yours. I'm actually thinking that
No, no, it's
the
no. Sorry, you will go in. But the reason I said that is I was trying to reflect adoption of the internet
got it.
compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been faster. No,
Yeah.
I can't compare two of them. Bitcoin has been faster than the internet. But I was just trying to bring, a more measurable scenario. That was why I said that. No,
Yeah.
2050 is far.
Yeah, yeah. In my head,
Continue.
because when I look at, because we are currently right now living in the digital renaissance and the exponential growth phase of technological advancements, right? So
Yeah.
in my head, I just see these things accelerating faster and not slowing down. And then
Yeah,
also
of
I
course.
look at where the debt bubbles are in these different nation states. It's not looking too good, bro. So
No, it's not at
so
all.
So I'm telling you, the debt to GDP ratio has surpassed, like the debt has surpassed the productivity levels of most of these countries, of most of these nation states,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
That is just a
it
death spiral. You can't pay this back. It's not possible.
exactly,
So the only thing they can do now is to keep monetizing the debt
exactly,
and expanding it. That's just
is
you can't pay for it. They can't pay for it.
exactly. And if we know all that to be true, and if we as Bitcoiners understand that prices should fall at the marginal cost of production, if we all understand that, then it shouldn't be long until people then start realizing, which they already have, because I've been doing some investigating even on the continent. I didn't know that people have been doing import export deals with Bitcoin since 2016, but I won't
Yeah.
share too much on that. But but
No,
people,
even in Nigeria, some persons have done import exports over
yeah,
time. In fact, that was why most people, like for example, businesses,
yeah,
some high base importers, they were doing that very well even before the first clampdown. The first clampdown was in 2021. So
yeah,
I know majority of people who were importing with Bitcoin, paying in Bitcoin, and it was easier for them because there was no fee. You know, you know they weren't they were even giving them a haircut on exchange rates and all those stuff, and it was very fast. Yeah,
because the idea that you can move, let's say $1 billion with for like a fee of like $100 is in it's people can't imagine that,
yeah,
right?
of course,
In their
of
head, it's
course.
like, how? I remember talking. I was actually on the ground on the continent. I won't say names and stuff, but I was talking
Yeah,
to a $1 million exporter, and when I told him this, he thought that I was like lying. He's like, no way, because he does big major deals, moving a lot of exports in and out the country, and
yeah,
he's like, no way. And I was trying to explain to him this concept, and for him, he wanted to know more, so I gave him my business card and etc. And so we could do business, but. The point I want to make is the more that people, because a lot of people aren't aware. That's the thing. Even
yeah, yeah,
millionaires and billionaires, a lot of them don't know.
yeah,
I talk to millionaires and billionaires, not billionaires, but millionaires.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
talked to multiple different millionaires, and they have no idea what Bitcoin is. They never even, some of them haven't even heard of it. Some of them have. They think some people got scammed, and they think the CEO of
Yeah,
Bitcoin is
yeah.
Sam Altman, or what is not Sam Altman,
Sam
Sam Bankrupt.
Bankman-Fried.
Yeah,
Fraud.
bankrupt fraud. Yeah, Sam Bankrupt fraud. So some of them think that's the CEO of Bitcoin, right? Because they don't understand the
Yeah.
technology and everything. So I just think it's very interesting. But in my timeline, I'm actually thinking in the 2030s is when we're really going to see huge amounts of different global adoption and multiple nation states using it, more nation states backing into the reserves. I actually think it's way earlier than actually most people think.
No, it will be earlier. It will be earlier since businesses have already started.
Hey bro, I'm just trolling is something that will not just challenge your perspective, but also touch your heart and soul. It's a book that defies convention, blending art and literature into a thought-provoking masterpiece. A reflective piece of provocative art that tackles societal constructs from angles you've never considered. Hey bro, I'm just trolling delves into the very essence of our existence. It questions the technology that surrounds us, challenges our notions of beauty, stares unflinchingly into the eyes of death, and questions the boundaries of freedom. It scrutinized the educational system that molds our very future. This book is a journey, an exploration of shared human experience, and it's a work of art that refuses to be confined by tradition. It's a canvas painted with words, a melody of thought, and a testament to the power of creativity in a world dominated by algorithms and data. Visit moonboycapitalventures.com and get your hands on Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling today. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Now let's jump back into the show.
Like I keep saying that 2024 is the 1998. Is it 1998? No, 2024 is the 1994 of the internet. There was a time when the internet wasn't commercial.
Mm-hmm.
The internet was founded in 1983, but it wasn't commercial. It was illegal to use the internet on a
Yes.
commercial basis.
Yeah.
So they had a restricted set of persons using it.
Mm-hmm.
Then before it became commercial and all that, and that was from 1994. So 1994 was like the IPO of the internet,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the today's ETFs of
Yeah.
Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I was trying to say earlier. So people don't really understand this,
Yeah.
and this is why when Bitcoiners talk, we talk with so much enthusiasm, because if they understand how this is moving, this is when we talk about the internet of money, right?
Yeah.
And how this is the technology to help store our value.
Yeah.
Because we talk about the functions of money, and you talk about medium of exchange, you talk about store of value, and you talk about unit of accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talk about the billionaire not knowing that you can save billions in Bitcoin, and just, for example, if you want to go across border, there's a measure of cash you can hold.
Yeah.
If you are going with gold, you'll be taxed and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
These are just to control the
Yeah.
system of control, right?
Yeah.
In Bitcoin, you can save any amount in your head
Mm-hmm.
as long as you can remember 12 words.
Yeah.
Even if you cannot remember, there's a way you can go across, and then whatever medium you use, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
still take your seed phrase and then get by your Bitcoin anywhere you are.
Yeah.
So a lot of persons are not thinking about this, but maybe it's because they don't really have that need yet.
Yeah.
So they are not really placed. If I didn't have if I was, for example, if I was to be in the US, I don't know, and this is something funny. I don't even know why US or maybe some advanced countries are adopting Bitcoin faster than African countries.
Yeah.
I understand regulation and all those regulatory hitch, but for the fact that people are not seeing it as a form of necessity, right? Because see, US talk about CPI of 1%, 3%, and everybody's shouting. In just 1 year, we had over 300%, 400%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last year, as I'm speaking to you, last year, Naira was 465.
Wow.
Today is 1,570.
That's crazy, man.
That's
It's
crazy. In
yeah,
1 year.
it's insane. And the craziest part is due to the lack of education, a lot of people. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I did read statistics that Nigeria was one of the highest adopters of crypto. And what would you say in percentages it is? Because you're on the ground all the time. Would you say it's
Well,
like,
continue.
yeah, I was just gonna say, would you say it's 10%? Would you say it's 5% of the population?
No. I won't say 10%, 5%. I just feel a lot of people know about Bitcoin.
Yeah,
They know about it, but they are not really. And this is the area I always would like to talk about, because people are inundated with. They feel they need to be computer scientists to save in Bitcoin,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
when okay, for example, I was talking to you about a business, a friend. I just met, not really a friend, but we just met, an acquaintance, and then she says she knew about Bitcoin since it was, I think, 600,000 for one.
hmm,
Now let me give you an idea. Now is 112 million as I'm speaking to you now for one. So she said she knew about it when it was around less than 600K for one. She could
yeah,
afford it, but then the person she talked to was a trader. So the
mm,
person really didn't, and this is where the
this
person
is
was
where,
always talking about, thank you, about charts, trading, it's risky and all those kind of things. The person
yeah,
really didn't understand it.
yeah,
And this was my ordeal, because when I came into Bitcoin, I didn't know anyone who understood it.
yeah,
This was why I had to go deep so that I can teach people the economic incentives for them.
yeah,
You don't need to be a computer. My dad doesn't need to know hashing function to save
yeah,
in Bitcoin. Just the
yeah,
same way, he doesn't need to know about reserve requirement or open market operation to save fiat currency.
yeah, exactly.
He doesn't know
Yeah,
what open market operation is. He
you,
doesn't know what
you,
treasury. He doesn't know what treasury bills.
you know
But he
what's
saves
funny?
fiat currency. So why should he know hashing function or difficulty adjustment before he starts, or knowing charts? MACD and relative strength index and all those stuff before
Yeah,
saving in Bitcoin. So this is the aspect I really touch on.
yeah,
Save Bitcoin as a savings medium, as a savings tool. Bitcoin as a tool for financial inclusion, right?
yeah,
As a way of using it as a credit system, and
yeah,
then as a tool for financial freedom.
yes,
These are the three economic incentives, or I call it the what's in it for me model of Bitcoin.
yeah,
Now, if I when I talk to when I talk to the lady, I just spoke to her for 1 hour. You won't understand that the amount she put over 500,000. She bought over 500,000. Immediately I spoke to her, but she has known this for years, and nobody was able to give her these economic incentives. Why she should see it as savings over time. As long
yeah,
as the money is not want to spend tomorrow, right?
yeah,
It's not something you want to spend tomorrow. Just understand that this is a savings tool. Just the way when you buy a house, you're not thinking of how to sell the house tomorrow. Or when
exactly.
you buy a land, you're not thinking of how to sell that land tomorrow. So,
Yeah,
and when somebody comes to you, or let's say you bought a land at 500,000, and somebody comes to you and is telling you that land is 200,000, should you be scared or should you be excited?
exactly.
You
Yeah,
should be excited. Oh, it's cheaper
exactly.
than what I bought. But because they don't understand the reason of having it, they feel, oh, it's now risky, and they sell off their land.
Yeah,
When I say land, their asset, their Bitcoin,
yeah,
as a result of fear. But when you see it as, oh, it's cheaper than what I bought, I should be buying more,
yeah,
right? So you're even more excited than everyone else. So
yeah,
somebody, one of the days when that was during the 2018, someone said, this thing is in the all-time low. Are you not scared of this? I say, wow, this is when you should be excited buying. But most people don't understand this, right? They don't understand.
yeah,
So this is the area I try to, open the eyes of most people. Because
yeah,
whether I would like it or not, yeah, Naira is 157. It will keep trending towards zero. Nothing is stopping
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Next year, on that 200% or 300% or whatever, right?
yeah,
And most people don't know this. So when you talk about how many percentage of people save in Naira, in Bitcoin, or how many percent of people have adopted, yeah, majority know about it. A lot know about it. A lot are excited about it, but they've not really seen it. They still think it's risky. They still
yeah,
think it's a speculative asset. right? They still think is, Sam Beckman friend that is the CEO of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Bankrupt fraud.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's just the confusion most people have.
So, what are your thoughts then on it potentially as an international standard for payments, especially because when you see a lot of companies, they outsource their labor to more developing countries, countries that have maybe the same skill set, so they could, and you think it would be easier for them to just adopt the Bitcoin standard to make it easier to pay, and also it would be more fair in terms of the type of payments that would be received. I'm thinking that at some point, because of the way the world is currently, we may just get to a point where there's not a nuance really in terms of uh, if you go to this country versus this country. Is there just one set standard of, okay, it's worth
As a
two
global
million
unit
two
of
million
account or
sats.
something.
Exactly. Yeah, like this is worth 2 million sats for this job. This is 3 million sats for this, and whoever has the highest skill set, irrespective of wherever they are around the globe, can get access to that particular opportunity to get access to that satoshis.
Yeah, of course. Presently I know someone who actually works and earns in sats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
smart.
so it's already happening. So they are like they are doing it at the double standard. So they are already earning not even in dollar, in sats, in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it can work. And the fact that they are earning in Bitcoin, they are not shortchanged on the payment, because if you're in Nigeria and then you're outside, if you're using the Swift system, or sorry, the wire transfer system, the processors will take a lot of fee. In fact, they will give you a
Yeah.
haircut of over 50%.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say you're 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 working, or you're deploying your values for, let's say, let me just use a round figure, $100, right? And then before it gets back to you is $50.
Yeah.
And then for you to even exchange it in your bank, the bank will sell the dollar lower than the what is it called? The market rate. And so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you might be getting like 35 to $45 for a
Yeah.
$100 work, right? So yeah, that's just what it is over that is how it has been over time. So for the
Yeah.
fact that the person is earning in sats, you are exchanging your value directly for the exchange of the value, which is the money.
Yeah.
So I think that is the best way, but most people still don't understand this, right?
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
people still, most people,
It's still.
I still see families, people who have relatives, they are in Nigeria, and their relatives are still sending them funds through the bank, the domiciliary account system, and they're still getting that haircut. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of persons, they still use the normal Swift, the wire transfer system or Western Union, and then
Yeah.
they get a lot of haircut. So let's say they are sending something to their family home,
Yeah.
the processor would take like 35 to 40 or 50%, and then they get lower than even what the family member sent. So,
Yeah.
or if they knew about Bitcoin, they'll just tell the family member, okay, open maybe Robinhood or whatever, and just convert your dollar to Bitcoin and send it to me. I'll use wallet of Satoshi, and I'll get it, and then I'll convert it to. But they don't still know. So
Yeah. They
over
still don't
time,
know.
yeah, they don't still know.
The best
They don't
kept
still know.
secret, yeah, I've used Bitcoin on a lot of scenarios, also when accumulating an asset. I won't speak too much about it, but yeah, I've used it. um, and so, what do you think about the ability of Bitcoin on the nation state level to bypass sanctions? And also, there's countries still where women aren't allowed to open up bank accounts to receive value. So, what do you think about those two opportunities that Bitcoin looks to try to tackle?
Yeah, everything is just about education, right?
Yeah,
Because most persons might have the idea, but because of the restriction and the regulatory hurdle, so it will pose a risk to do some certain things, right? It will pose as a risk. So just like in Nigeria, most of us have been using it as a savings medium, but now it's now looking like a risk to even still adopt it. But for the fact that it has come into Nigeria for a very long time, so they can't just clamp it down. It's not possible, right?
Yeah.
But for example, in countries like, let me just give an example, like maybe Saudi Arabia, where women are not allowed to, because of their religion and some laws, they're not allowed to work and to earn, right? So they can work online and earn Bitcoin. And I
Yeah.
think, what's his name? Uh, Gleitstein, I can't remember his full name. He's a human rights
Malcolm.
activist.
Malcolm Gladstein.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a human rights activist. So I think he has done a lot of work in this aspect, where he has helped most people get hardware wallets into the country, and then they can work online and earn sats, and then
Yeah.
convert that sats to local currency. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, most people might know about this, but for the fact that they are still strict, of course, that's the fourth function of money for the government, a tool of control. For us, is medium of exchange. Some people use it as store of value, unit of account. But the most important tool of money for the government is a tool. The most important function of money for the government is tool of control, where they can take your property rights.
Yeah.
So that's the most important aspect for them. And they will protect it with everything.
Yeah.
They will protect
Yeah.
it with everything. So,
Yeah.
but over time, technology will always win. You can't beat technology. It will always win.
Yeah. Well,
It will always win.
how do you think we can increase and accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin adoption in Africa?
More education. I know it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy for the fact that before you even, like, for example, me now, I had to stop working actively. And even from, for example, today is Monday and I'm
Yeah.
doing this. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be. So what I'm saying is, the most at times uh, the reason the information has not gone too broad is because for you to really do this full time, you have responsibilities, maybe family, you need to earn for a living and all that. So except maybe there's a form of sponsorship or payments, right? And
Yeah.
I think that would be a motivation to
Yeah.
help boost, because this is one of the ways I've seen. And the reason I'm talking about it is because in 2020, like I told you, when that's when I started studying Bitcoin. I've studied Bitcoin every day since 2020. Every day. There's no day I don't read something about it. No day,
Same.
right?
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
So for the fact that I've invested this couple of years, this is like a degree. It's like a 4-year course.
Yeah.
But I I needed to drop working actively, because I was
Yeah.
like, this money I'm even working for is something I will devalue fast. So let me
Yeah.
understand this, because this is the future. Let me
Yeah.
sacrifice, because that was my own sacrifice. I had to. I'm a dad and I have responsibility, but I had to juggle these
Yeah.
things. So what I'm
Congrats. Keep
saying here
populating.
is,
Keep populating, brother. We
so
taking over. No, no, go ahead.
yeah, of course. So how we have to juggle this thing is, we'll do our best. I
Yeah.
try every day, like I said, I try to share the lights on Bitcoin adoption to people, to
Yeah.
my friends, my family, and I try to tell them how this thing is important to them. I know it might take time, because the more there is restriction, and uh, the more there's restriction, and the more we can't really, maybe the more we are not actively earning through it. Because this is one of the reasons also most shit coins have proliferated Africa, because they will always sell um, something easier, right? You know, one person will come with his scheme and tell you this and this and this, and
Davido.
I almost, yeah, and then everyone wants to run into it to make quick money, and
Yeah.
then it becomes a scam, and everybody is saying crypto is scam because they are thinking crypto is Bitcoin,
Yeah.
but they are different. They are very
Exactly.
different. So for the fact that you need to invest your time, your energy, even resources, because you need other internet, you need some things to help you even access this information. For the fact that you need to do that, it will take you a lot of time. It will take you resources, but it doesn't stop the fact that it's technology. Over time, things will get easier to. Uh, the information will get more. Uh, what would I call it? It will be more abundant to everyone, and then we'll get this
More
adoption that's,
accessible.
yeah, more
Yeah.
accessible. So
I think with Africa too as well is the advantage that we have is it's easier for us to get over, or it should be easier for us to get over certain barriers to adopt new technology because we didn't even have old existing infrastructure like they do in the
yeah,
West.
yeah,
And so this is why I think the acceleration of this technology specifically should be rampant and very, very fast. I told you I have a Web3 Academy that I'm launching now because I want to teach not only the skill sets of smart contract coding so they can build not only on top of Bitcoin, but also on top of, different smart contract platforms because you can build
yeah,
on top of Bitcoin now and try to figure out ways in which they can use their brains to solve some of the problems and make those problems and position them in a way that it solves African problems, right? And so this is
yeah,
sort of this Pan-African Web3 Academy that I've launched and that I'm teaching my students now. And right now I'm working on different strategic partnerships, trying to bring this technology to Africa so that we can really fully understand it, not be scared of it, understand what it
yeah,
is, and I'm doing it in a different way. I'm doing it in a way where I'm not only talking about the technology, but then how it came to be. We're talking about money, what is money principles, the economic aspect, because it's super important. It all ties together.
yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
finance and technology had a baby, fintech, right?
yeah,
But this is a very, very extreme version of that. It's a very, very complex and dynamic version of the fintech space, right? And so yeah, so this is basically what I'm building, and I enjoy every bit of it, and I think that I'm very, very positive to what's happening, and I just want to say keep populating,
of course, of
and
course.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
and
once you see this, you can't unsee it.
yeah,
So that's
exactly,
just the way. That's just the way it is. It's over time it will get, and I like the fact that at least when I talk to people about it, there's this measure of hope, right?
yeah,
They're like, oh, we have something that can help us because saving is something very important here.
yeah,
If you don't have savings, you can't do anything. And for the
exactly,
fact that you have a currency that you can't save in,
yeah,
it's that's the road to self freedom.
yeah,
There's how Sailor said the road to self freedom is working exponentially harder for a currency that's getting exponentially weaker.
yeah,
That's the
exactly,
definition of Africa.
yeah,
We keep working exponentially harder for a currency that gets exponentially weaker.
yes.
That's self freedom. So we just need this is very important to Africans. Very, very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think we'll leave it off there, man. Do you have any final notes before we go, man? And what's your Twitter? Your Twitter is Stan or Origis, right? Just Stan
Yeah,
Origis.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Same as, yeah,
Okay.
standard. Just
Yeah.
I we still have a lot to talk about, but
Yeah.
time and
Yeah. Time. But I'll
time,
get you back on again another time, man, to talk more.
time.
Uh,
Yeah, of course, no
yeah.
problem.
I enjoy these talks, man, and you have a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you and your time. And yeah, we'll do this again another time, man.
All right, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this concludes this episode of the Mooncast then, and peace.